Welcome to part 2 of my Atari ST project video. I'm going to show you exactly why I call this Project Atari ST. It runs now, but it took a decent amount of work to get it to this point. Like many good projects, this one started out with a roll of the dice. I purchased a non-functioning Atari 1040 STE from eBay. I could tell by looking at some of the other pictures in the listing that it was an STE, and the seller said that he couldn't test it due to not having any tapes for it. And yes, it did say tapes. I figured that fixing a broken Atari would be a good learning experience since I have a background in electronics and an affinity towards basket case projects. Unfortunately, this project was never completed, partially due to the worst packaging experience I've ever had on eBay. I suppose that the seller assumed that if he sold something for parts, he could package it like garbage, and all I received was a ruptured box with a monitor and 2 pieces of packaging material inside. Several weeks and an eBay buyer protection claim later, I purchased a second Atari 1040 STF, once again in non-functioning condition. Fortunately, this one arrived as described, non-functioning. As soon as I got it home, I opened it up and decided to do a good visual check on the motherboard. I crossed my fingers and hoped for something simple. Unfortunately, what I got was a patch of weird corrosion underneath the power supply in the back left-hand corner of the motherboard. I didn't think it was too bad at first, but the closer I looked, the worse it got. The damage to my TOS-ROM sockets and ICs was pretty extensive. I've fixed a lot of electronics problems in the past, but this sort of circuit board corrosion was a bit beyond my realm of experience. It was at this point that I knew I was in over my head. Luckily for me, I have a good friend who has extensive training in this sort of corrosion repair, who not only completed the repair for me, but also made a detailed video showing the exact process that he went through to do it. I highly encourage you to check it out. I've put a link into the description of the video as well as a card on the screen. I replaced the rusty old TOS 1.0 chips with a fresh set of TOS 1.04 chips from eBay, and also purchased a power supply and a memory upgrade kit from Exos, who makes a variety of amazing upgrades for these vintage machines. The power supply upgrade was pretty easy and consisted of swapping the power cable, switch, receptacle, and frame from the old power supply onto the new one. The RAM upgrade, however, proved to be a little bit more complicated. Browsing the instructions for my RAM upgrade on Exos' website after I had made my purchase, I discovered that I had what he referred to as a silly style motherboard. On this particular motherboard, the MMU adapter is slightly more difficult to install due to having tight clearance underneath the keyboard. This problem is alleviated by trimming about half of the length off of the MMU adapter pins. Another portion of the assembly of the kit involves soldering together the shifter adapter, which I managed to totally mangle by bending pins and tearing out a solder pad. Once again, I called in a favor with my friend Keith, who was able to repair the damage that I had caused. I learned to lay off the Monster Energy drink before attempting to do detailed repairs. The final portion of the install consisted of lifting some resistors to isolate the old RAM from the motherboard, which actually didn't work for me at all, and I ended up having to remove all of the RAM from my motherboard before the kit would actually work, with a Dremel tool, while listening to Rammstein. After reassembling my machine, I did a quick run of the Marpet Extra RAM utility to confirm my install was successful, and then celebrated by running a popular slideshow called Frontier Elite, as well as some interesting demos. I'm pretty satisfied with the way that this basket case has turned out, and with the RAM and power supply upgrades, I'm confident that this machine will be able to run whatever software I want in the future. I'm really looking forward to finally using this thing to control my Akai sampler with Cubase. Stay tuned for my next episode, where I install a 16 MHz CPU upgrade and a Gotek floppy emulator.